Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. As always, super glad that you're here. Be sure to go to outkick.com. That's where you can find all things Gains for Girls. That's where you can like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Please be sure to share these episodes far and wide. Today's guest, we are talking to Representative Laurel Libby from the state of Maine. She's garnered national attention over the past few weeks, and rightfully so. She has a backbone of steel and moral courage that is rarely shown. A few weeks ago, in the House of Representatives, again in the state of Maine, she was censured by the House Speaker, Speaker Fecteau. Now, why was Representative Libby censured? And what does censured mean really quickly? It means you don't have a voice. It means you don't have the right to vote on the floor. Again, why her constituents voted for her in the first place. So in short, her constituents don't have a voice. Why did this happen? Why did Speaker Fecteau do this? Oh, well, that would be because Representative Libby has defended women. She is a woman who has been open in her defense of common sense and of women.
The chair understands that the member does not intend to submit an apology to the body.
That is correct.
The member will be in violation of House Rule 401, Part 11. The member will not be able to cast a vote or speak on the floor until the member has come back into compliance with House Rule 401, Part 11. The member may return to her seat.
Apologize for what? Oh my gosh, I watched this video and I'm mind blown. This used to be the party. Remember in 2021, the party of follow the science. Yeah, well, that is no more. This interaction, of course, in conjunction with the interaction between President Trump and Governor Mills, which we will discuss on today's episode. Look, the girls of Maine, the girls and women of Maine deserve so much better than the leadership, again, of Governor Mills and the Maine Democrat majority are currently offering. We are so grateful that Representative Libby will not be bullied into rejecting, again, basic common sense that men have no place in girls' sports. Never, ever apologize for saying that. And she's got big news and how she's pushing back and why, again, she won't apologize. Check out this episode with, again, Representative Laurel Libby here. Well, Representative Libby, thank you so much for joining the Gains for Girls podcast. It is so rare in today's world. It's becoming more common, but the stand that you have taken and how unapologetic you have been in a political climate where it's not welcome, it's not the cool thing to do, even still, even with Donald Trump in office, especially in the state of Maine, I just have so much admiration and respect for you, for your courage, for everything that you have done and will certainly continue to do to champion women, to champion common sense. So to be able to chat with you on the Gains for Girls podcast means so much to me and to, of course, my listeners, my viewers. But I just wanted to start with, look, there's this photo of you, and it's you're standing on the House floor. You've got Speaker Fecteau standing up there, and you're being, censured. This picture to me is worth 1,000 words. I bet you never thought you'd be here as a woman, having to defend yourself for defending women. So can you just share with us a little bit about your background and really what has caused you to gain the national attention and national praise that you have over these last few weeks?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say such mutual respect, Riley. Thanks so much for having me on today. Certainly a month ago, if you told me I'd be sitting here having a conversation on your podcast, I would have told you were crazy. But President Trump had just come out with his executive order. The Maine Principals Association had made it clear that they were absolutely not going to abide by that. We're going to continue to allow biological males to participate in girls' sports. And so when a male won the pole vaulting championship here in Maine, it just seemed the absolute right thing to do to say, hey, this is what's going on in Maine. I didn't even say in that post, it's not right. Ironically, I just laid the facts out there and we've seen what happened since. The fact is, it is absolutely not fair for biological males to be participating in girls' sports and to be taking our girls' place on the podium is absolutely unacceptable. any way you slice it. And so I told Speaker Fecteau the night that I was censured, we had a meeting prior to that censure, prior to when I stood in front of him in the House chamber. And I ended the meeting telling him, Speaker, you're going to go down in history as the man who silenced a woman for speaking up for girls. And I think it's so critical that those of us in positions, theoretically at least, of power do speak up for the girls, for those who are having their rights taken away. We shouldn't expect them to do that if we won't.
Wow. That statement is so powerful. And I think the general public has got the picture for a long time and is certainly, again, becoming more bold and saying it out loud. But what you just said, you are going to go down on the wrong side of history for silencing a woman for defending women. That is the message that needs to be on these ads, these campaigns, these commercials against these Democrats. Again, I hate to make it partisan like that because it really shouldn't be a partisan issue, but unfortunately, that's the reality of it. It has almost entirely fallen on party lines. That is the message that needs to be played on these commercials when they're running in 2026, 2028, whatever the term is, time and time again, 24/7, every single TV. That's the message that needs to be pushed out. So you spoke up. Again, you mentioned you didn't even necessarily at first insert your opinion. It was just matter of facts, laying it out. This was a male who placed fifth against the men in the men's division. Now he's winning state titles. What has the response been from your constituents, from Mainers across the state, since taking this stance? Like, have you been surprised by support, by negativity? I'm sure it's been a mix of both.
I've been surprised by the volume of outreach. I'm not surprised on the breakdown. I think it's followed pretty clearly along the lines that we see polling on the issue, right? It's an 80-20 issue. And that's pretty much what I've heard from folks, that ratio. But what has been surprising is the sheer volume and the number of people, hundreds and hundreds of people who've reached out and said, thank you for speaking up. Thank you for your common sense position. Don't stop. And that's been the most resonant message is don't stop. Don't apologize for speaking the truth. Don't back down. I think people are watching and they're hungry for folks to stand their ground. The minority that disagrees with us is just that. It's a minority, but they're so loud. And so folks are encouraged to see multiple someones speaking up for the position that they hold themselves, and kind of relieved, I think, to understand that they're part of the majority that believes in common sense and that biological males should not be competing against girls.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, again, that visual, it's burned in my mind of you being censured. That wasn't your first run-in with Speaker of the House in Maine, Speaker Fecteau, was it?
No, my first term, was the first go around with Speaker Fecteau. He was the speaker when I was first elected, and that was during COVID. And so there was all kinds of tyranny going on in Maine, same governor, same speaker. And when Governor Mills finally lifted the mask mandate after a year and a half, I went into the State House without a mask on, and Speaker Fecteau had declared that the State House was still to be a masked zone. So I and a few others went in. I did not think it was just that once the statewide mask mandate was lifted, that people would have to mask just to competition their government. That is, it was not just. And so I went in along with a few others to show the way and say it's not right, and encourage folks to speak up themselves as well for their rights.
So you're used to being a trailblazer. That's what I hear from this. Everyone's already seen the clip at this point, but we have to play it. Cue the clip of the interaction between Governor Mills and President Trump.
Has complied immediately, by the way. That's good. But I understand Maine. Is Maine here, the governor of Maine? Well, are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. See you in court. Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
That was just like the most Trump interaction ever, like all of it. Of course, I love how he says, she says we're following state and federal law. Obviously, she's not following federal law, and President Trump makes it very clear. He says, look, I am the federal law. But again, following this back and forth, Attorney General Bondi basically put Maine and a few other states on notice saying, look, let me be clear about Title IX, of the Constitutional Amendments Act of 1972, what this means under our Constitution, federal law. It means you cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. And so, there's even a risk here to lose federal funding. Are you surprised that Governor Mills, again, is doubling down? Because if what I have read is right, Maine has received over $5 billion in federal funds. I don't know how much of that is allocated specifically to the educational realm, but that seems absurd to me. And again, I would imagine to many Mainers to risk all of that and that this is the hill, men and women's sports, that Governor Mills is going to die on.
Yeah, it is a crazy hill to die on because Mainers don't support her stance. And, Maine relies on federal funding. As far as the educational portion in K through 12, we're looking at $250 million a year, which is a significant amount. Maine is a small state. When Governor Mills stepped into office, we were at about a $7 billion budget. She's blown that up to being almost $12 billion 6 years later at this point. And so when you do the math, that $250 million a year, $500 million in 2 years, is a significant number. And Mainers certainly don't support taking the federal government to court and spending more taxpayer dollars to fight on an issue where it's clear we stand on the side of girls and ensuring that biological males are not participating in girls' sports. So any way you slice it, it is the wrong stance for Governor Mills to take. And yet they've chosen to die on this hill when they really don't have the support of their fellow Mainers.
Now you have big news. You have just dropped a really bombshell lawsuit in a federal court. Tell me about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe that the Speaker of the House has the constitutional authority to strip my voice and my vote. More particularly, the voice and the vote of my constituents that elected me to represent them. By censuring me and inserting this punishment that says I can't speak or vote, my constituents don't have any representation in the State House. Taxation without representation for sure. And so I think it's incumbent upon me. I won't apologize for speaking the truth, but I think it is incumbent upon me to do everything that I can to get their voice and vote back. And so we have sued in federal court. And we're looking to resolve this through the courts, since it seems that the speaker has no intention of being reasonable. And really, when it comes down to the math, in order to actually eject me from the House, they have to have a 2/3 vote, according to our Maine Constitution. And they don't have that, which is why they've had to do this end run around the Constitution and have a majority vote to censure me instead. And so we'll see where this goes in the courts, but that is, I think, of paramount importance to get my constituents' voice back.
I love this. I have been saying for a while now, this is how we fight back. It's what the left, truthfully, has done such a good job at. You heard it. Governor Mills said it. We will see you in court. They threaten and they pursue lawsuits like nobody's business. So to be on, the offense like you're doing is incredible. I wish everyone would follow, whether you're an elected official who has been targeted in the same way that you have, whether you're just an everyday person who has been targeted. Of course, I know it's a financial responsibility. It's a huge time investment and an emotional investment at that. There's a lot that goes into it, but I believe this is the path forward. So I could not be more excited for you, but more importantly, as you mentioned, for your constituents to have their representation back in office. So, I mean, what's the status of your censure now? Are you still just like being totally stonewalled here?
Yeah, I went into the state house last Tuesday, 1 week following my censure, and I sat there in the chamber. And it's a really weird feeling to know that if we had a roll call or an issue come up that I, felt passionately about, that I would have no ability to speak to it or vote on the record. It's very surreal. And
It's really dystopian.
yeah.
When you think about it. And the left wants to talk about, again, I hate to make it partisan, but we take it back to, prior to the election and all of these women who declared and claimed and asserted that they were going to lose rights under President Trump. To me, again, looking at your state leadership and what has happened to you, excuse me, this is, of course, in direct conflict with what they're saying. Well, actually, it's true what they've said, but it's not because of Trump. It's because of Democratic leadership at that. So I want to play 2 more videos for you, and I want to get your thoughts. Let's cue the video of Governor Gavin Newsom here.
So like you right now should come out and be like, you know what? The young man who's about to win the state championship in the long jump in female sports,
right.
that shouldn't happen. You as the governor should step out say no.
No, and I appreciate
but like, would you do something like that? Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. So that's easy to call out, the unfairness of that. There's also a humility and a grace, that these poor people are more likely to commit suicide, have anxiety and depression. And the way that people talk down to vulnerable communities is an issue that I have a hard time with as well. So both things I can hold in my hand. How can we address this issue with the kind of decency that I think, is inherent in you, but not always expressed?
Newsom apparently started the Democratic Party civil war of 2025. Let's play one more video of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
I want to ask about California Governor Gavin Newsom's comments saying that Democrats were in the wrong for allowing transgender athletes to compete in female and girls sports. What is your response to that after Democrats had opposed the women and girls in sports?
I haven't seen his comments. What Democrats opposed was unleashing sexual predators on girls throughout the United States of America.
Honestly, I don't even know what conclusion he's trying to draw there. So if you're as confused as I am, and I mean, don't fret. I mean, I think the majority of Americans are in the same boat here. What is he even trying to say? But let's start with Governor Newsom. I mean, are you surprised by this? He's really the first, one of the few prominent Democrats who has come out and at least acknowledged that it's not only unfair, he says it's deeply unfair, but then goes on to say not unfair enough for him to actually do something about it because he doesn't want to be perceived as mean, is what I got from it.
Yeah, absolutely. A fair amount of word salad there that meant absolutely nothing except for highlighting that he does understand that this is unfair policy. Now, I don't think we're going to see Gavin Newsom doing anything about it. And it's the equivalent of, which way is the wind blowing here? Gavin Newsom is a smart political animal, and he understands that 80% of Americans do not agree with biological males in girls' sports. And so he is taking, a little bit of a common sense position here. Again, I don't think he spoke to change of policy in that statement, but he did acknowledge that it's unfair. And we'll see if people are satisfied with that much of a concession. But it certainly has thrown the Democrats into a tailspin because they don't know what to do with that.
No, as made very clear by Hakeem Jeffries. Again, the connection of wanting men out of women's locker rooms and women's sports to then saying that will unleash sexual predators. I assume he's insinuating that we want to inspect genitals. That's always what they go to. But again, that is absolutely not the case. Of course, that would be utterly invasive and a total violation. Every bill that I have seen put forward and every policy that we have seen by these large governing bodies to, quantify and qualify sex, it would be either a birth certificate, which I don't believe is satisfactory because in all but 6 states you can alter your birth certificate. Cheek swabs, we've seen that in some places, which is a simple saliva test to determine sex, or a routine physical that every single athlete, I believe in every single state, has to already go through anyways. So again, the whole inspecting genitals thing is just silly and totally, a farce. It's a lie. Last thing for you, you really have been so courageous, so brave. But again, that's not to say it doesn't come with the pressures and the negatives. So how have you been handling that, especially in your personal life? We see how strong you've been on social media, but again, that's not all of you. So how have you been handling all of the negative that comes with the stand you've taken?
I've gained experience over the last number of years getting really thick skin, but I also know that there's one source of truth, and I'm connected to that source of truth and know that we're all here for such a time as this. And so honestly, it's an easy stand to take. Sure, there are hard days, but I'm standing for truth. You're standing for truth. And we're representing an army of people out there who believe and know that there are biological imperatives and facts. And at the end of the day, God doesn't make mistakes. And so it's an easy call to make, to speak up for truth and to stand on really firm ground when I'm doing so.
I love that you mentioned for such a time as this, Esther 4:14, because the front half of that verse, which is often forgot about, it's often left out of the discussion, but it says, "For if you remain silent." It goes on to say, "You and your father's family will perish." But I think that's very fitting for the stand that you have taken. And just as Christians, we were not saved to be silent. So thank you for being such a wonderful role model for me. Truthfully, you are a heroine of mine, but again, broader for women and girls, for humanity, actually. It's not limited to just women and girls. Thank you for being a role model to people across the world. We are so appreciative of you.
Thank you.
Again, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in to the Gains for Girls podcast. OutKick.com. That's where you can see all of our episodes. You can you can subscribe, you can share these. I hope you follow Representative Libby's lawsuit, what she is doing there, because again, it's monumental. It's foundational. It goes beyond, again, how she has personally been impacted, but how it's impacted her constituents. That is a selfless leader. So again, you can follow her at Laurel_Libby on X. Keep up with what she's doing because really she's a hero. I know I said it, but I don't say that lightly. I really mean it. So you could learn something from her courage. But we will see you guys again next week on the Gains for Girls podcast. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. The fight to save women's sports and restore common sense is far from over, and I continue the conversation every week. So make sure to catch more content over here and subscribe to OutKick so you don't miss a thing.